There are a couple ways to derive vitamin B12 recommendations. One is called the factorial approach, in which the average requirement of vitamin B12 is calculated as a replacement of daily losses adjusted for dietary bioavailability. So, for example, if people lose an average of 1 microgram of B12 a day, and the bioavailability of tiny amounts of B12 from food is assumed to be about 50%, if you got 2 micrograms a day, you'd absorb 1 microgram, 50%, and that would replace the 1 microgram you lose every day. But that's just the average daily requirement based on average daily losses. The average requirement would mean 50% of people actually need less, and 50% need more. You don't want to cover the needs of only half the population, though, so you add 2 relative standard deviations to cover more like 98% of the population, which just means you up the average requirement by 20 or 40%. So if we add 20% to that 2 micrograms a day we came up with, that comes out to 2.4, which is indeed exactly the RDA for B12 in the United States, and other countries are similar, recommending 1.5 to 4 micrograms a day. Another way to derive B12 recommendations is to see what dose maximizes B12 function within the body. B12 is used to metabolize MMA and homocysteine, and looks like there's additional benefit up to an intake of 6 micrograms. So instead of an RDA of 2.4, maybe we should tell people to get 6, since that appears to normalize all the vitamin B12-related variables. A subsequent, larger study using the same principle found the same kinds of curves maximizing B12 functionality in the same range, suggesting again, instead of 2.4, maybe we should tell people to get somewhere between 4 and 7. Since the bioavailability of tiny amounts in the diet is assumed to be around 50%, that would mean we should shoot for absorbing 2 to 3.5 micrograms into our body every day. The bioavailability of larger amounts found in supplements is different, though. Based on the famous Heinrich equation, down at 1 to 2 micrograms, B12 absorption is about 50%. But as you can see, only about 1% of a 2,000 microgram dose is absorbed. OK, so if we want to absorb 2 to 3.5 a day through fortified foods or supplements, what do? Well, if we ate B12 fortified foods at every meal 3 times a day, how much would we have to get at each meal? If each meal had 2 micrograms, then we would absorb throughout the day 0.9 times 3, or 2.7, which would be in the 2 to 3.5 range we're shooting for. So if you had even like 3/4 of a cup of soy milk at breakfast, and then sprinkled on as little as 1 teaspoon of certain brands of nutritional yeast on your lunch and dinner, you'd be all set. Instead, if you were going to take supplements, how much would you have to take each week to absorb 2 to 3.5 micrograms worth a day? Well, if you took 2,000 once a week, that would get you 19.5, which would average out to about 2.8 a day. If you'd rather take a supplement once a day instead of once a week, 50 microgram tablets are most frequently advised and used. In theory, 50 micrograms would get you 1.9, and in practice it looks like 50 does get you that 2 micrograms. And indeed, in a comparison of chewable 50 microgram daily doses to 2,000 once-a-week doses in vegans and vegetarians with marginal deficiency, they both work just as well in bringing down MMA and homocysteine levels. One option for fortified foods that have enough for once-a-day dosing is leaf-side. Just add water whole food plant-based meals that have 75 micrograms of B12 per serving. Please note that neither I nor Nutrition Facts have ever and will ever accept any money to promote any for-profit product, so unlike almost anywhere on the internet, you know that when I plug a product, it's strictly because I believe in it and think it's going to help people, not because it's lining my pocket.